Descent. The Descent is a 2006 horror film written and directed by Neil Marshall. And this time around, it's a movie that I haven't seen that Nate has seen before. So Nate, we got together, watched The Descent for the first time around. But this is a movie, frankly, I was kind of personally avoiding. I heard how terrifying it was. I was just like, nah, I'm cool. I'll pass. But I am glad that I finally got around to watching it. But tell me about your personal experience with this movie.
Well, this was recommended actually by my brother back in 2006 when it was in theaters. And I went in 100% blind to this movie. I knew what it was roughly about. It's about a group of girls that are cave divers and they go into this cave and get lost. That's what I thought it was about. I thought it was like a survival movie. And I was royally caught off guard, incredibly scared when I first saw this movie. And I think the scariest part for me, being someone that's terrified of claustrophobia, this is just a really claustrophobic movie. It's very squirmy to me.
Oh, yeah, and I'm right there with you. There are points in this movie where these women are crawling through these very tight little caves to get from one cave to the other. And there are times where Nate and I were just both sitting there like, nope, screw that. I'd be climbing right back up. Like, well, this was fun.
Right.
But, I think they nailed the claustrophobia, especially there's this one scene where someone's crawling through a tunnel and there's a cave in.
Yeah.
Like, that part really got my heart going. And I think that's the thing I like most about this movie is the setting.
Yeah.
It takes this old horror trope of, a group of people going somewhere that they shouldn't be, running into some monsters and having to escape. But I think that the cave setting's perfect for this because there's, you can't get out. The only way to get out is to keep going. Yeah. And also, it's completely dark in these caves. So I really liked how they use the light and everything and how they use darkness to create the scares.
It's paced very well. And the fact that this movie doesn't need the monsters. It's already scary without them. And then they show up. That's what always caught me off guard about this movie, is that you're going into this whole adventure and all of a sudden you're like, holy, if things couldn't get any worse, there's giant bat people monsters to consume them in this cave. And I just think that it also, you care about these girls. I really think that they did a good job of quickly establishing who these females are. There is a tragedy that happens. And I think that also the claustrophobia of being in this cave makes you see things. You start to wonder what's real, what's not real. And I would do the same thing. The light plays tricks on you, the dark plays tricks on you, and it starts to just, I would say, people's worst fears and the true fear starts to meld together a little bit.
Yeah, and I liked how they didn't bring the monsters in really until the third act.
Yeah.
So like you said, they give you time to really sympathize with these characters and like these characters. And in case of some characters, dislike them, root against them. Because, sometimes you need characters to root against.
Yeah.
And so I think that they did a good job establishing that. And they did create a lot of fear before the monsters came in. And when the monsters came in, yes, the movie got really scary. But I feel this movie, just top to bottom, was a little too reliant on jump scares and jump cuts. However, there were a couple jump scares, jump cuts in the beginning that are super effective. You don't see them coming.
And they're relative to her worst fears and what's happened to her, which is what's so cool about those.
Right. And they're well executed visually.
But there are moments where she'll see something and it'll sort of scare her away. And there aren't any jump scares. There's no music to it. You're just like, what did she just see? Like, what is she about to encounter? And I think that you're right, bringing those monsters in at the third act, it's because the monsters are just a bonus almost. It's already claustrophobic. It's already scary and almost helpless feelings. Things just go so wrong. And you can tell this is a lower budget movie. And I think that, once again, utilizing the location for the scares, and really, I gotta hand it off to the cinematographer. Like, it does feel pitch black in this place. It does feel like their headlamps are the only thing lighting, but somehow you still know exactly what's going on, and it's enough light provided that it looks good, and it looks scary and shadowy. But I just think that this is a really hard movie to shoot because it's so dark.
Yeah, and not only do they do good work with the shadows and the light and the dark, and with the color scheme as well. Sometimes the flares are red, and so you got this beautiful red shot, and then sometimes they're using green industrial glow sticks, and you got this green glow to it. So I think that they kept it unique and distinct. And when I was watching this movie, the whole time I was trying to figure out were they really shooting in a cave?
Yeah.
Because the settings were all very distinct. Were they shooting in one part of a cave and just all over, getting different locations? But no, I found out that they built these sets and everything, for safety and budgetary concerns. But they made it look authentic.
This is an all-female cast through and through. There's one male in a brief scene, and it's all female. So what did you think?
I enjoyed that they had an all-female cast. I would say, nobody really stands out performance-wise. The only thing that I kind of have a gripe is that two of the characters were similar looking enough Then at one point when they got split up, I'm like, okay, is that the main girl who lost her husband with her? Or is that the main girl who lost her husband by herself? And it took a while for me to like, okay, distinguish one from the other.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think the cast did a fine job. And I like that they, had women in the roles where, these aren't the dumb women of horror movies that you've seen years and years. They're very resourceful. They can think on their feet, and they're survivalists.
Yeah, I agree. They're very smart characters, and that's one gripe as well. I've seen it a couple times now, a few times, that like now I can start to distinguish who's who. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once they get covered in blood and covered in dirt and it's dusty, it's really hard to tell who is who at certain points. But I really think they highlight who these characters are at the beginning, so their resourcefulness matters towards the middle and end of the movie. I just think that they covered their bases enough where all the characters had something to do, and no one was the stupid one where you're like, God, like, right. Why do they gotta throw them?
They'd be better off without them.
Exactly. They all share a purpose.
Yes.
Buffs.
Alright, so that's our thoughts on The Descent. Dennis, you didn't want to see this movie because it was so incredibly scary. So put a score on what you thought of it as a movie, and then the scary scale. Go ahead. What'd you think?
Well, on our standard 1 to 10 scale, I would give this movie a 8 out of 10. I thought it was really good, very well paced, and really well shot. And once again, the thing I loved about this movie was the setting. They took something old, something cliche, if you will, and made it fresh and original with a new setting. And that's just something that filmmakers should aspire to do. Take something that's been done before, but change it a little bit, and it'll feel fresh and original. Yeah. So I definitely give this movie high marks. It's an 8 out of 10. Now, as far as the scare scale, 1 to 5, this movie's up there. This movie's a solid 4. This movie was pretty scary.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as terrorizing as I built it up in my mind when I was avoiding it. But the scares are effective. Yes, it gets a little too heavy on the jump scares, but between the setting, the claustrophobia, the pitch blackness,
it's the creature design.
The creature design, exactly, and just like the fact that these things can't see, they can hear you. They're like you said, they're like bats, and your scenes are right up in someone's face, and that's scary to me. So I think this movie was very effectively scary. I'll give it a 4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, this movie is, I own it. I've always loved this movie. I think I was really blown away by it at its time. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to be that good. But watching it again and really picking it apart, it is a super effective scary movie, a really well-paced movie as well, and just well-made. And I'm going to go a little bit higher than 8.5. This is just in my collection of just a horror movie that I think is pretty much a must-see. As for the scary scale, I agree with you. I'm going with a 4 out of 5 as well. I mean, it is some scary, scary stuff. And if you're afraid of the dark or tight spaces, this movie's going to get you.
Yeah. Watch it in the dark, too.
Oh, yeah. Turn all the lights on.
Be in the darkness with the characters, fully immerse yourself,
Yeah.
and enjoy this movie.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And remember, it's only a movie.
Yeah.
Buffs.
All right, so that's our review of The Descent. Have you guys seen the movie? What do you think? Leave all your comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We always appreciate the support.
And be sure to join us next week as we keep these horror movies coming. All the great Spooktober reviews heading your way. Next week, we'll be watching an old classic, a favorite of both of ours, Wes Craven's original Scream.
Yeah, it's going back to the slasher
genre.
genre.
Yeah, one of the best out there just to watch.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it. If not, we'll give you our thoughts on it.
Yeah.
We'll bring you that review next week, but until then, don't you forget.
There's no place like the theater.